You know what? The iPhone 16 was a tiny upgrade over the iPhone 15. And you know what? The Samsung Galaxy S25 is also a tiny upgrade over the Samsung Galaxy S24. So let's find out which one of these two phones, the Samsung Galaxy S24s or the iPhone 15s, should you buy in 2025. See what I did there? Alright, if you're here for the first time, I'm Esha. You're watching Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. So the Samsung Galaxy S25 and the iPhone 16 look very similar except for 3 rings here and 2 rings here. Basically, they're both glass sandwich designs with aluminium frames, and the fit and finish is largely similar. And as for color options, I think that iPhone has more vibrant color options, where S25 is more muted. But yeah, I mean, that's just a personal choice. Now, both the phones are comfortable to hold and use in hand, primarily because they're very compact. Now, with the S25, what Samsung has done is that it's actually made it thinner and slimmer than the Samsung Galaxy S24. Unless you hold them side by side, you won't really be able to tell the difference. But yeah, both are compact and light. Now, since these are flagship phones, you get IP68 rating on both, which is nice. But since these are flagship phones, you should also expect USB 3.2. But that's not really the case, because on the iPhone 16, you get USB 2.0. Now, with respect to buttons and functionalities, the iPhone has a couple of extra buttons. Of course, you get the power button and the volume rocker on both. But with the iPhone, you get the action button and the camera control. Camera control, I've spoken at length about. I don't like it. I don't have to say any more words about it. The action button, on the other hand, I kind of find it useful sometimes. Now, with respect to glass protection, you get Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on the Samsung Galaxy S25. It's still a very sturdy, solution. I like Corning Gorilla Glass Victus 2, and it doesn't scratch up as easily as the ceramic shield protection on the iPhone 16, which I have said is the most scratch-prone solution out there. Alright, now when you talk about the displays on both these phones, there is no doubt that the Samsung Galaxy S25 is better than the iPhone 16. You get a slightly larger display with better glass protection. You also get 120Hz of refresh rate and 60Hz on the iPhone. And this is LTPO technology, no less. In fact, Samsung's display is brighter than Apple's display, whether you take it outdoors and view it under direct sunlight, or if you're watching HDR content. But there is one advantage on the iPhone, is that it supports Dolby Vision, which is generally better technology. And with the Samsung, you actually get HDR10. Samsung, of course, doesn't have Dolby Vision even on its televisions. Now, one thing I expected the S25 to have, which it doesn't, is the ProScaler technology, which, by the way, is available on the S25 Plus and the S25 Ultra. And this could be because the S25 Plus and the S25 Ultra have a higher resolution QHD display. This one is Full HD. And even with respect to multimedia experience, considering that Samsung has support for high-res codecs like LDAC and a scalable codec, Samsung's very own codec, it's, of course, better than the iPhone. But the quality of the speakers are actually kind of better on the iPhone compared to the Galaxy S25. Take a listen to it and let me know what you guys think. And while you're on the way to listen to it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon right next to it to get notified whenever we put out an awesome new tech video. The Galaxy S25 also has an ultrasonic in-display fingerprint scanner, whereas iPhone uses Face ID technology. And I also checked out the haptic feedback experience. It's largely very similar on both, but sometimes the iPhone might seem better. But yeah, I mean, it's like very little of a difference to sort of say that iPhone's like definitely better. The one thing that Samsung's done good with the S25 this year is that it doesn't have the Exynos anymore. Anyway, what you get is the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, and with the iPhone 16, what you get is the A18. Now, talking about benchmarks, in Geekbench, we got a higher single-core score on the A18 compared to the Snapdragon 8 Elite, which was to be expected. But the multi-core score was much higher on the S25 compared to the iPhone 16. In fact, one advantage you get with the Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy is far better ray tracing performance. You can see the scores for yourself. But while we've been seeing great ray tracing performance from these chipsets, we're seeing very few games, so I don't know if it makes any difference, truth be told. And we also ran 3D Mark Wildlife Stress Test, where the best loop score was much higher on the S25 compared to the iPhone 16, but the stability was not, because Samsung tends to throttle the GPU to keep the performance in check. With the S25, Samsung has also included a larger 15% vapor cooling chamber compared to the S24. But does this indicate that the phone runs cool? Actually, it does, which is one of the things that is a problem with compact phones, not with the S25, because it never crossed 45 degrees Celsius, which is kind of our threshold, which is also true for the iPhone 16, by the way. Now, these are not meant to be gaming phones. They both have very tiny displays, but if you want to game on it, we also did try out Genshin Impact. We got an average FPS of 59.9, which means that the phone doesn't break a sweat at all. And with the iPhone, when we tested it earlier, we had gotten 58.9 FPS. But to be fair, this was when we ran the game last year, because this year with iOS 18.3 on this phone, unfortunately, the tool we use is not working, so we couldn't get a fresh score. But yeah, anyway, it seems like the S25's performance in gaming is better than the iPhone 16. Of course, one advantage on the iPhone 16 is definitely the fact that you will get support for AAA games. For example, you can play Assassin's Creed Mirage or Resident Evil Village, which is not available on Android. But that's an Android level problem, and we cannot really blame Samsung for it, because devs will only code for the lowest common denominator, considering that they have to, be supported across a wide variety of devices and a wide variety of SoCs. Now, if Assassin's Creed Mirage or Resident Evil Village were to be supported by the Snapdragon 8 Elite, I have a feeling that it will perform better than the A18 on the iPhone 16. Now, for me to give that much importance to gaming on phones that are this tiny in size is pointless. Most people who will buy the S25 or the iPhone 16 will look for good, fast, smooth daily performance, and it's fast and smooth on the S25. Absolutely no stutter. It's extremely responsive. In fact, even the iPhone 16 is pretty fast, but it's not smooth. Why? Because 60 Hz, not 120 Hz. Now, we also tested out the network performance on both, and it seems to be really good because you get support for almost all the 5G bands. Airtel and Jio work exceptionally well on both the phones. You also get support for Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.4 and NFC. By the way, one reason why I like the Samsung Galaxy S25 is because Samsung has actually included 12 GB of RAM even in the base variant. Now, one thing I really wanted to test with the S25 is how's the battery efficiency with the Snapdragon 8 Elite, and I'm happy to report that it's actually not too bad, because despite being a more powerful chip, we actually got 6 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, and it's in the ballpark range of the iPhone 16, which also gets about 6 to 6.5 hours of screen on time. In fact, the iPhone 16's battery life has gone down after the iOS 18.3 update, because earlier we used to get like 7 hours of screen on time. Now, considering the Galaxy S25 has a 120Hz refresh rate display, I think that at 60Hz it will beat the iPhone. The battery size, by the way, on the S25 is 4000 mAh unit, the same as the one on the S24 as well. I think that silicon carbide technology would have been useful, but yeah, Samsung hasn't gone with that solution this year. The Galaxy S25 takes 1 hour 15 minutes for a full charge, where the iPhone takes 1 hour 30 minutes. Now, one thing I must mention is that the S25, in fact, all of the phones in the S25 series, the S25, the S25 Plus and the S25 Ultra are all Qi 2 ready. What that means is that they will support Qi 2's tech, all of the advancements that Qi 2 has, but for that you will need to buy a Qi 2 enabled magnetic charging case separately. But I don't see that as a huge improvement, considering the fact that the charging speeds are still stuck at 15 watts, where MagSafe can go up to 25 watts. Alright, now it's time to talk about the cameras, and disappointingly, the Galaxy S25 doesn't have any hardware upgrade compared to the S24. It's the same triple camera setup that you get with the S25 with the telephoto camera, whereas on the iPhone 16, what you get is a dual camera setup. Now let's take a look at the comparison samples. Now, you still only get 12 megapixel outputs on the S25 compared to the iPhone 16's 24 megapixel outputs, and the results speak for themselves. Just take a look at the details captured by the iPhone 16. They are incredibly better. Now, even at 2x in-sensor crop, the iPhone 16 offers more details and sharpness. But here the Galaxy S25 is not that bad, and you will notice a difference only when you pixel peep. But when you zoom further, like say 3x or 10x, Samsung takes sharper images. There are definitely more details as well. The optical 3x sensor does come in handy here. In fact, at 10x we notice some Moir patterns forming on the iPhone 16 shot. The colors on the S25 are definitely more boosted and vibrant. Just take a look at the purples, the reds and the greens. All are boosted. I like how the iPhone has close to neutral colors here. However, the reds on the carrots are not accurately represented on both, just saying it, because it looks pink on both, right? But with the S25, you get the same analog filters that we notice in the S25 Ultra, so you can play around with that a little bit. Plus, you can feed it your own image to create a filter of your own as well. On the iPhone 16, you get photographic styles. So basically, if you want to create a mood or look for your photos without any destructive edits to JPEGs, you can do that on both the phones. Now, when shooting against the light, both offer fairly decent HDR tuning, but Samsung does a better job of lifting the shadows to bring out more details from the darker portions of the image. The good thing is that it doesn't overdo it, and the dynamics are still present in the image. The same goes for when you're shooting people against the light. The ultra-wide angle camera tuning continues to be superior on the iPhone 16. The Galaxy S25 doesn't capture as much detail in daylight, and in low light it's a noisy mess in the darker regions. Moreover, the iPhone 16's ultra-wide is also equipped with a close focus lens, so it can capture great macros. Samsung still cannot, even with the Galaxy S25. Now, when taking pictures of friends and family, S25 tends to take boosted images and the iPhone tends to take close to natural looking images. But if I have to pick, I will pick the iPhone because of more accurate skin tone. In portrait shots, Samsung does a decent job, but both at 2x and 3x, I actually kind of prefer the portraits on the iPhone because you get slightly better semantic segmentation and much better skin tones for sure. Now, when you look at low light shots, the iPhone actually performs better. You get slightly more details, and there is some kind of over sharpening going on with the Samsung Samsung, that doesn't make the image look good. Now selfies are good on both, but the iPhone takes slightly reddish skin tones and the S25 captures slightly boosted colors on the skin tones. In selfie portraits, however, I prefer the iPhone. You get better semantic segmentation compared to the Samsung. Now both can shoot at 4K 60 FPS, and in daylight it's a close call between Samsung and iPhone, but in low light the iPhone simply wins because you get more details and the footage is not as noisy as the S25's is. Selfie videos are very similar on both, and both record fantastic selfie videos, so nothing to tell the two apart really. Now both can also shoot portrait videos. On the iPhone it's called cinematic video, and on S25 it's called portrait. Now both record at 4K 30 FPS, but the overall video quality is better on the iPhone. However, the edge detection seems to be better on the S25. Now both have extra video features, like both can shoot HDR videos at 4K 60 FPS, and the S25 can also capture log footage at 4K 60 FPS, which the base iPhone 16 cannot. This is an advantage on the S25. Now this time with the S25 you get audio eraser, which is very similar to audio mix on the iPhone 16, but they work differently because with the S25 you get artificial intelligence based audio erasing that's happening, whereas on the iPhone it actually makes use of the mics as well.
Hey guys, right now we are recording with the Samsung Galaxy S25 and the iPhone 16 just to... Hey guys, right now we are recording with the Samsung Galaxy S25 and the iPhone 16 just to... Hey guys, right now we are recording with the Samsung Galaxy S25 and the iPhone 16 just to find out. Hey guys, right now we are recording with the Samsung Galaxy S25 and the iPhone 16 just to find out.
So overall, if you look at it, iPhone's camera is generally more reliable, and that's why consumers prefer it a lot as well. Plus, it captures a lot more details with the 24MP outputs, which is something that I really like. But with the Galaxy S25, what you get is that extra telephoto, which adds a little bit of versatility if you want to zoom in, even further. Also know that this is like the first software that we're running on the S25, so maybe the performance could improve with future updates. We'll keep you posted. Now on the Samsung you get One UI 7 based on Android 15, and on iPhone you get iOS 18. Samsung promises that you will get 7 generations of Android updates and 7 years of security updates on the S25, and Apple will also give you about 6 to 7 years of updates, that's for sure. But when it comes to the software experience, while One UI 7 has a lot of inspiration that's taken from iOS, I still like the experience of One UI 7 more. There's a lot happening here that makes the whole phone using experience fun. And one of the primary reasons why I like the One UI 7 experience is that generally it's not been buggy. In fact, even when I used the beta on the Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra, it wasn't as buggy. But that's not true for the iOS 18 updates that we've been getting. Even with the stable iOS updates, there are so many issues with iOS 18 this year that a lot of us are frustrated. Now, apart from that, of course, One UI 7 on the Galaxy S25 has a lot of awesome new features that I really appreciate. Now, the fact that the Gemini is the default assistant with the power button when you long press it is something that I really appreciate. Of course, most of the things that you could do with the S25 Ultra, you can do with the S25 as well. For example, if you wanted to switch off the Bluetooth or the Wi-Fi, you can just tell, Gemini to do it and it'll do it. Unlike Siri, which has to ask for permission every time you ask it a query and it has to ask ChatGPT after that, on Samsung with Gemini, you get responses immediately. And things like sketch to image, note assist, summarizing calls are genuinely useful and fun to use as well. In fact, I tweeted this out as well. I was missing, Android phones primarily because circle to search doesn't exist on iPhone. I've gotten so used to circle to search that I find it very difficult to use an iPhone now. I don't know if the same is true for everybody, but yeah, circle to search is awesome, and it's even better on the S25 series. In fact, it's even better on most other Android phones because these updates will keep coming. And of course, with One UI 7, you also get the Now bar and the Now brief as well. Now, with the Now brief, I have been using that extensively on the S25 Ultra, not the S25, but the experience is going to be largely similar. So essentially, you need to feed it a lot of information. For example, I started using the Galaxy Watch Ultra and feeding it, my health data. So it would give me a brief of all that I have tracked throughout the day, which could include my exercise, which could include my sleep data, all of that within one consolidated page, along with the weather, along with my tasks. Definitely helpful because I don't have to open 3 apps separately. As for the Now bar, that's also very well implemented. You have multiple live activities running at the bottom of the screen on the lock screen, and you can also control your apps from there. For example, if you're listening to music, you can play, pause, or scrub, or even change the track. Now with iOS 18's Apple Intelligence updates, you do get notification summaries, which are kind of useful. And you also have visual intelligence along with that, camera button that you get. I don't know, I've never used it once on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I find it kind of, like I have to make a habit to use it. The other thing about One UI 7 is that it's got faster, smoother, cleaner animations now, and it's coming really close to iOS 18 in terms of the way the animations are tuned. And of course, for Samsung fans, we always have the good lock modules. As I mentioned in the intro, these phones feel like S series upgrades. They don't feel like generational upgrades, they're pretty iterative. Both the phones have two key areas where there are upgrades that are noticeable. One is in performance and the other one is in AI. The good thing about Galaxy AI is that all the features have been shipped at start itself, and the features are genuinely more useful than Apple Intelligence, at least in the time that I've tested both these phones. Now, one thing I noticed is that the iPhone 16's price has dropped drastically since the launch, and that could also be because it's an iterative upgrade. And trust me, if history is any indication, the Galaxy S25 is also going to drop in price drastically. So with that drop in price, the iPhone 16 might seem like value for money for a lot of folks. But the Galaxy S25 as a product, just because it has Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, is actually an improvement over the Galaxy S24. And therefore, when the price drops at the end of the year during the end of the season sales, I think that the Galaxy S25 will become great value for money at that time, maybe 6 months later. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.